You know, maybe call me old-fashioned, but the reality is that I still talk about goals. With every single team that I work with, we talk about what do you want to achieve this year. When everything is said and done, there is a tendency, and it happens all the time, that we measure ourselves by one number. You know, even us as a business, we have a number that we want to achieve in terms of how much we want to grow every single year. Now, when we talk about our goals, I'm not of the philosophy that we simply throw them away and we never talk about outcomes and goals, because from my perspective, goals define the process and they define the standard that you're going to execute that process to. Some interesting conversations that I've been having lately with a lot of our clients is that, you know, athletes, all of us, to some degree, we have what we call a timeline. And that timeline is often expressed through where you represent yourself. Are you right here, right now, in the present? Or are you projected a little bit into the future? When someone says you've got to put something behind you, they're literally saying put it in the past. Some people live back there. Some people live here. Some people live in the future. Goals give us an insight into the future, but if we don't come back to the present to think about the process, then we're going to make a big error in terms of trying to achieve that outcome. You can't achieve great things whilst focusing on the future entirely. You have to come back to now. But if you don't set yourself a target there, then you have no standard of which to execute your processes right here, right now. By the same token, we can learn from the past, but we can't live back there. When an athlete makes a mistake and you see that they can't move on, that's what's happened. They've focused on their mistake and they're living in the past and they're unable to compete in the moment. And so we've been doing a lot of work lately around just trying to help athletes understand where they're at any given time, because we don't want to live in the future. We don't want to just live in the moment either. And we certainly don't want to live in the past, but we can get value from each one of those, if you like, perceptual time positions. So for example, there is a time and a place to reflect on the mistakes that you made at practice or even during a game. But during the game is not the time. During a game, we want to be in that moment. And when we turn up at practice next week, when we think about, well, are we on track to achieve our goals? Like, what are our goals in the future? And are we living those standards? We constantly do activities around, hey, let's evaluate the degree to which we're living our values. So let's think about the standard that we want to achieve, but let's come back to now to say, well, are we doing a good enough job? Okay, and if we're not, okay, let's put some plans in place and some actions that we can take. But again, there's a time to think about the past. There's also a time to think about the future. Actually being able to manage yourself to move through those three time perceptual positions, that's a bit of a skill, and it's something that everyone can learn, and I think that it has significant benefits. So that's something to think about, something to consider. If you've got athletes, you can even ask them that question. You know, where do you spend most of your time? And they'll be able to tell you. Some will say, hey, yeah, I spend most of my time thinking about what's going to happen. Some will say, no, I'm constantly thinking about what just happened. And then you'll get a few that are able to live in that moment. But even then, like, always living in the moment means that you may not learn from your mistakes, or you may not be focused on the right action to take for the future. So being able to move between those three positions is something really important. So I encourage you to go and have a conversation with your athletes, your student athletes and players, about where they see themselves, and see if you can help them progress either to the future, to the moment, or even into the past, then back to the future. Have some fun with that.